Good evening, folks. My name is Brian Lawrence, and welcome back to IndianPeaksWeather.net, your official source for weather in Nederland, Colorado, as well as some of the surrounding foothills towns, including Ward, Rollinsville, Blackhawk, Central City, and even Boulder. Currently, at my weather station outside the house, 35 degrees, which is actually quite warm for this time of year. We're getting into mid to late November now. It's almost Thanksgiving. We do have a few inches of snow on the ground, and we may be getting a little bit more. But 35 degrees for 9:30 at night, it's pretty warm. And the reason for that are those west winds you see right now blowing from the northwest at 11 miles per hour with a few higher gusts. We're getting a little bit of downsloping warming off the Continental Divide. And if you don't know the geography around Nederland, the Continental Divide is about 10 to 11 miles just to our west, peaking out between 11 to 13,000 feet high. So when winds come from the west, they tend to come up and over the mountains, and they begin to descend and warm, raising our temperatures and also creating drier conditions. And as you can see right now, the dew point is 21 degrees. That combined with the temperature is resulting in a humidity of 55%. And today, our high temperature reached 35 degrees. So we're right now currently at our high temperature for today, which is really interesting. And again, I think it's a result of those winds coming up and over the Continental Divide. Our low was 23 degrees, and our average temperature today was right about 30 degrees. It's been quite windy over the past few days. A lot of times when we get the west winds over the Continental Divide, especially in the winter, we tend to get some pretty strong winds. We did have winds up to 60 to 70 miles per hour over the past few days. The high wind today just sustained at 39 miles per hour, with high wind gusts today about 46 miles per hour. So winds definitely a little bit lighter, although that would be quite windy for many other parts of the country. You do have to remember, though, that the air is a little bit thinner here at 8,200 feet in Nederland, and stronger wind speeds, higher wind speeds, thinner air don't have the same force as they would down at sea level, for example, down in Washington, D.C. or along the eastern seaboard. That's because the air is denser down there. It has more momentum, and so it can exert more pressure on objects as it's moving along. You can see today that the temperatures have generally been rising throughout the day, with from a low of about upper 20s around 6 a.m., raising into the mid-30s during the mid to late afternoon, and pretty much staying there. And the winds today, you can see, have been generally from the northwest, west-northwest down here, and with variable amount of speed, anywhere from about 10 to 20 miles per hour, lightening up a little bit towards evening. Take a look at a slightly bigger picture. This is the Weather Underground Wonder Map. Current conditions across northeastern Colorado, including the Front Range Urban Corridor and the Front Range Foothills towns. We're right here in Nederland, Colorado. My station is right here, 36 degrees. In town, 38 degrees. And you might notice something quite interesting on this map. It's actually colder down the plains than it is up here in the foothills. What we have is what we call an inversion. What's happening is down the plains, as you can see, the winds are much lighter. These circles here don't have barbs on them, so the winds are lighter. The sky is clear. Some places still have a little bit of a snowpack on the ground. And with the long nights this time of year and the dry atmosphere, it's really easy for these areas to radiate or experience radiational cooling. That just basically means that the ground, the earth, is losing energy to space in the form of heat waves. Now, during the day, you don't notice that because while the ground is still doing that, it's also absorbing energy from the sun, and that effect is to warm up the ground and the air above it. But at night, the sun's gone, and if conditions are just right, like they are tonight with light winds and clear sky, the ground cools off pretty quickly, and it cools off the air right above it, and you get an inversion, where temperatures right now in many parts of the plains, Erie, back up towards Fort Lupton, up to Longmont, even over to Boulder, are in the upper 20s already. A good 7 to 8 degrees cooler than we are here in Nederland. And what I do expect to see happen overnight on the plains is the winds to pick up. And as soon as the winds begin to pick up, that's going to mix the atmosphere out. It's going to break the inversion, and we'll see temperatures start to rise in the mid-30s during the night on the plains in some of those cooler locations. So this is probably about as cold as it's going to get down in some of these areas tonight. We have an approaching storm system. It's going to help mix up the atmosphere later tonight and early tomorrow morning. For us up here in Nederland, this is about it for us. I suspect we'll be seeing our temperatures staying in the low to mid-30s for most of the night. All right, I'm going to do a little bit something different tonight. And often I look directly at the models, but I thought we'd look at a product produced by the Weather Prediction Center. And it's based on the forecast grids produced at the various forecast offices, the National Weather Service forecast offices across the country. And it's a more typical surface map, probably what you're used to seeing on the weather. Now, when I was a kid, I still remember the days where the weatherman got up. He did not have a digital weatherman behind him, and he had these stuck-on highs and lows and fronts. So it wasn't very high-tech back then. We're talking back in the 70s. Much more high-tech now. But still, the surface map is probably the most recognized product by the public, an understood product by the general public, representing the weather forecast. All right, so here we go. Looking at this is basically about now. 6Z Friday is about now. It'd actually be about 11 p.m., but close enough. And you see your lows and highs. First thing you're going to notice, there's really not a lot of weather in the central part of the country, and that's going to change up in Iowa and Chicago tomorrow and tomorrow night. Some rain in the northeast, not cold enough to snow there. We have a warm front here pushing across eastern Colorado. Now, warm fronts are very ambiguous in the western U.S. The eastern U.S., when you get a storm, very often you get precipitation, warm frontal precipitation out ahead of the storm. As the storm pushes through, you get wraparound precipitation behind the storm. In fact, what you're seeing with the storm in New England, the warm front here, you can picture moist Atlantic air being pulled in ahead of this low pressure area across New England, producing rain. This is an occluded front here, which is helping to force even more rain over Vermont and New Hampshire. And then you have the cold front that's pushing across the mid-Atlantic out into the ocean there. Not much precip associated with that, except down in Florida where there's some showers and thunderstorms. That's the classic storm model. You have a cold front, a warm front, sometimes an occluded front here, the purple line with the semicircles and triangles on it. Now west, we don't tend to get true warm fronts or warm frontal precipitation, especially here on the Front Range. Most of the time with the storms that we get, it's post-cold frontal that actually get the most precipitation as the cold front pushes into northeastern Colorado, sometimes stalls as a stationary front across the central part of the state, and then we can get that upslope flow up into the Front Range foothills to the Continental Divide that produces a lot of precipitation, either rain or snow or a mix. So I would take this warm front with a grain of salt. Temperatures will be warming up tonight, so yeah, maybe we could say we have some warm air advection, but I don't think it's a well-defined warm front. Minor detail. Slightly bigger picture, you do notice that there is some precipitation forecast on the west side of the Continental Divide. Now we're talking Steamboat Springs, we're talking the Winter Park, Grand Lake, Lake Granby, and it's actually looking like a decent amount of snow for some of the ski areas in there. We see this a lot in the winter here in Colorado. As you know, where we are on Earth in the northern hemisphere, winds tend to blow from west to east across the country. Storms tend to move from west to east across the country. And the Continental Divide is right in here. In fact, you know what I'm going to do? I am going to do a little bit of drawing so I can illustrate some of this. Here we go. The Continental Divide, use our imaginations a little bit, is right in here. Roughly. It's hard. It's a small map. We're right about there. And we're over just slightly on the east side of that. So as the storm's coming from the west, the air associated with them, the moisture associated with them, the precipitation associated with them gets lifted up and over this wall of mountains. And if you think about it, think about Colorado geography a little bit, it's very complicated. The Front Range, it's really truly a wall of mountains, basically from just north of Fort Collins all the way down past Colorado Springs, down to the Sangre de Cristo Range, all the way to New Mexico. It's a wall of mountains, right? So as air comes in from the west, storms come in from the west, they're forced up and over this wall of mountains. They can't go through the mountains. They can't go under the mountains. The air goes up and over the mountains. As the air rises on the windward side, or the west side of the mountains, it gets colder and precipitation forms. You tend to get a lot of precipitation on the windward or upslope side of the mountains. That means as the air goes up and over the mountains and starts to sink, not only does it warm, but there's less moisture in it. So it's actually drier at that point. So you've probably heard this term before, rain shadow. You get the rain shadow on the side of a mountain range opposite of the wind direction that is prevailing at that time. In this case, we have a storm system. It's moving in from the northwest. Winds associated with it are coming from the west. Precipitation is focused on the west side of the Continental Divide here, especially north of I-70. And we're seeing the enhanced precipitation over the areas of the west side of the divide, including Devil's Thumb and Winter Park, as I mentioned, Fraser, Tabernash. Steamboat Springs stands to do very well in the storm system, primarily because there's not much in the way of mountains in the northwest of Steamboat. So they get a good fetch of moisture and precipitation, whereas there's a mountain range right past Steamboat, so the air has to get up and over that. It loses some moisture. By the time it gets to Winter Park, it's a little bit drier, but still it's getting lifted, so there's precip there, but not quite as much. Geography is key in forecasting the weather in Colorado. Geography combined with wind direction, not only at the surface, but in the mid to upper levels of the atmosphere. And I want to put together some training materials or a training webinar on how that actually works, but it's extremely complicated. You get back out east where there's less geography, like Maryland, where I used to live, and Virginia, especially the Piedmont sections, the coastal sections, you don't get those geographic effects, and it's a little bit simpler to forecast where the heaviest precipitation is going to occur. But when you get out west, the mountains interact with the winds, and it's hard to forecast. And as we saw with this last storm, Boulder had no snow. They got down, it was warm. Places south and east of Denver, especially down towards the Palmer Divide where they had some upslope from the north winds, 16 to 20 inches of snow. The terrain is key. And understanding the terrain and how the winds are flowing with a certain storm is how you can make a good forecast. Anyway, I'll get off my soapbox now, and we'll start stepping ahead a little bit, because the forecast is going to evolve such that by tomorrow morning we see this cold front poised over southern Wyoming, and this cold front is going to just push south through the day. It's going to be a fast-moving cold front. There's a lot of cold air behind it, and by midday Friday, that cold front is basically just through northeastern Colorado, probably down into the Denver metro area. Now, a lot of times when this happens, there is enough upslope flow behind that cold front. Remember, winds flow counterclockwise around low pressure areas in the northern hemisphere. There's enough upslope flow behind that cold front to temporarily disrupt the downsloping effects of the winds in the mid to upper levels of the atmosphere flowing over the Continental Divide. It's a balancing act. Even if the winds are coming from the east and northeast in Denver, if you go up 2,000 or 3,000 feet, maybe to the altitude of Nederland, 8,000 feet or so, the winds are coming from the west. So the deeper the layer in the atmosphere that you can get upslope flow behind the cold front, the better chances Nederland has of having some decent snow. And in this case, it's not going to be that deep. It's not going to get that high. That shallow layer of winds from the east, that shallow layer of upslope flow. There's often a quick push, and we may see our winds turn around temporarily from the east-northeast in Netherlands tomorrow when that front comes through, maybe 10 to 11 a.m. Not going to last long. It's going to be a surge, we'll get some snow, and then the winds will turn back from the west again, and we'll start downsloping, and that'll pretty much be it for us. So that's the trick in forecasting in the Front Range with these cold fronts is how deep will the upslope flow get? And sometimes it gets as high as the top of the Continental Divide, in which case it's blowing over to the west side to areas like Winter Park. Not this time. It's just not going to be that deep. However, the air behind it's going to be cold. So by tomorrow evening, still some light snow showers forecasted around northeastern Colorado. The heaviest, again, still on the west side of the Continental Divide. No surprise there because the winds will be predominantly from the northwest, west-northwest probably. And then by Saturday morning, it's out of here. And we will have some really cold temperatures Friday night into Saturday morning. By far the coldest temperatures of the season for the Front Range foothills. I'm looking at temperatures down in the single digits in some places, and even down in the plains in the teens, 10 to 15 degree range. So it's going to be cold, and we really haven't had that much cold air yet this fall. It's been a very warm fall. It's been a pretty warm autumn across the whole country, and that's not unusual for an El Nino type of winter. And we're almost into what we call the meteorological winter season, which is December, January, and February. And by Sunday, again, high and dry across the western two-thirds of the country. But we do expect temperatures to moderate pretty quickly over the weekend here in Netherlands. Saturday will be a cold day. It will not get above freezing on Saturday. But by Sunday, yeah, we'll be seeing temperatures back in the 30s, perhaps even up to 40. So, how much snow is going to fall tomorrow? Well, I'm glad you asked. Let's bring up the latest and greatest NAM forecast here, and we'll just do a precip total to start with to see what the models are saying in terms of total precip, and we'll go out 48 hours, 2 days, which should be enough. There we go. Looks like the Chicago area, Iowa through northern Illinois to Chicago, could be seeing a decent snowstorm. We'll be mixing with a little bit of rain there at the beginning, which will reduce accumulations. And for us here in northeastern Colorado, you gotta love the resolution of these models, but it's hard to pick out where Netherlands exactly is. I always struggle with that. My rule of thumb, take the northern border, Kansas, southern border of Nebraska. It's about the 40th parallel, by the way. Stretch it across, that goes right through central Boulder. And right here at our house, we're just a hair south of that 40th parallel. So we're right about in there. And you can see there is some precipitation forecast for us in the plains. Not much, by any stretch of the imagination. On the plains, just barely measurable. Up here in the foothills, anywhere from 1/10 to perhaps 1/4 of an inch. We're 4 miles east of Netherlands. So in these types of storms where the snow is coming up and over the divide, we get noticeably less here than the town of Netherlands itself does. And then if you take that even further and you go 4 or 5 miles west of Netherlands to Eldora, they tend to get a lot more snow there on these downslope storms. So I think that we'll be seeing an inch or two of snow here during the day tomorrow. Not a big storm, but enough to whiten the ground and add to our November snow total. We'll take a look at the GFS too. I think that's coming in right now. See what the GFS says. And then once that's done, we'll take a look at a few of the model output statistic products as well. So P total, 48 hours, we'll do the same time period, so we're comparing apples to apples. And the GFS, basically the same thing. It's actually showing a little bit more precip over northern Illinois there. But for us, basically the same pattern, not much on the plains, and maybe 1/10 of an inch liquid here at our house. That translates to maybe an inch or two of snow. Fluffy snow. Alright. So that's really the excitement now for the next several days. We do expect, as I said, temperatures to start moderating on Sunday and Monday. Probably getting high temperatures, probably getting back up into the low to mid 40s by Monday here at 8,200 feet, so a lot warmer down in the plains. Then we have to watch another storm system. I'm not going to talk a whole lot about it right now. It's a week away for Thanksgiving. That, depending on how strong it is, may or may not impact Thanksgiving travel plans in northeastern Colorado. All right, just a quick look at the current satellite image. You can see that disturbance that will be bringing the snow to us tomorrow, the cold front and that disturbance up here, the high clouds associated with it. It's going to be a quick mover. That's the same storm that by tomorrow night will be dumping snow across central northern Iowa and Illinois. So this is a quick moving system, almost an Alberta Clipper type of system, although it's not really originating up in Alberta. It's originating more to the leeward side of the Rockies in Montana and Wyoming. But still, it has some energy. And the key thing right now is we have not had much cold air in the central part of the country in here. So the Gulf of Mexico is still wide open. There's still plenty of moist air in place here for these systems that are moving across the central part of the country to really tap into that moisture and result in some decent, not heavy, but decent snow. And I think that's what they're going to be seeing in Iowa and northern Illinois. All right, we'll take a look at the Weather Underground forecast for us here in the St. Anton Highlands. Again, about 4.5 miles east or down canyon for the town of Nodowa itself. Temperature is still 35 degrees. And they're saying slight chance of snow tonight, about an inch possible. And then tomorrow, 1 to 3 inches of snow. I agree with that. But it'll be very short-lived. A low tomorrow night, Friday night, 9 degrees. Yes, folks, that's right. Single digits. Our first single-digit night of the season. Saturday, not getting above freezing. Highs in the upper 20s. Lows in the upper teens. Sunday, Monday, warmer. Not balmy, but warmer. Monday especially, 45 degrees. And then you can see by later in the week, we do have a prolonged period of precipitation, especially on Thursday. Not looking like a substantial storm right now, but a few key things to note. Winds are from the east for probably a couple days. So, upslope flow. If you have some moisture in there, get some snow. One problem I can see here is that it's going to be cold. A lot of times when you have very cold temperatures, you don't tend to get quite as much snow. I'm now not saying it's a myth that it cannot snow when it's really cold, but you don't tend to get a lot of snow because there's not as much moisture in the air, for one, and two, the processes by which snow forms are not quite as efficient when it's cold. So your snow actually is denser when it's cold than when it is like 20 to 24 degrees or so. But we'll keep an eye on that, see how that goes. And I think that's about it. I appreciate your spending another few minutes of your evening with me here, and we'll try to do another update the next day or so. See how our storm goes tomorrow. Enough to whiten the ground and maybe make the roads a little slick, but it'll be short-lived. And then a sunny weekend, just not quite as warm as we've been used to this fall. And you can tell from this forecast here, we're definitely getting to more of a winter-like pattern, which is about time. The ski areas are opening. Many of them are west of the Continental Divide, so they're benefiting from these snows that we're only getting a few flakes from. Anyway, have a good night. This is Brian Lawrence, signing off, and we'll talk to you soon.